Hillary Clinton. I will be voting for Hillary Clinton. I can have my opinion and there will always be an opposing one. That is the nature of a healthy democracy. But this is not that.
So I'm going to play now, Dave. The reason why I'm excited to have you on the show is that we are a little simpatico when it comes to politics.
See.
And normally I'm simpatico with a much larger group of people.
That's a time in the past, though. That's not coming back.
Yes, there's the pro-Hillary people, and then there's the...
You're a leftist.
Yeah.
This election has very little to do with politics, policy, or legislation.
You don't know what you're talking about. You want to give it back to the people who started the Iraq War and crashed our economy. Brilliant. The people who passed NAFTA and sold out our worker base. Brilliant.
But she's intelligent, and she knows what she's doing.
Hillary Clinton is experienced and you know who else has experience? Hitler had experience. You know who else has experience? George W. Bush has experience. You know what their experience is? Doing the wrong thing. Hillary Clinton's experience is doing the wrong thing at every goddamn turn. Every turn. Every turn. She deregulated Wall Street. She deregulated the telecommunications industry. She gutted welfare, NAFTA, the TPP, Libya, the Iraq War. Her experience is horrible. People who think this is a good idea to vote for her are so wrong. And you're not real lefties. You are propagandists, and the other people who aren't journalists who are saying the same thing have been infected with the propaganda, and now all you do is vomit it up.
She's intelligent. She knows what she's doing.
Vomit it up.
She's mentally sound. She's responsible, and she's sane.
And the reason why I'm bringing this up is to just show you how brainwashed regular people are. Just how they just regurgitate talking points handed to them by the corporate duopoly that is now in control of our elections. And without they don't go away. Hey, this is the conventional group. This is groupthink. Like, for instance,
I'm entirely aware of all the criticism against her. I'm aware of all of her failures and shortcomings.
Dude, we know Hillary is bad.
This is about a megalomaniac who's driven by nothing but ego.
We're voting for her because airplanes would fall from the sky with Trump. So what I said to that was, meanwhile, we're bombing Yemen now. Democratic president is pushing the TPP, and he's jailing journalists. But this seems rational.
I'm voting for Hillary because, make no mistake, there is only one person that can defeat him.
This is what I'm talking about. It's not random. This is in the same thread, right underneath. This woman says a third-party vote goes nowhere. Well, what I said to that woman was, two-party vote goes to more war, more fracking, more Goldman Sachs deregulation, trillion-dollar bailouts. Congrats. But a third-party vote goes nowhere. What if a lot of people voted third-party? Would it still go nowhere? Or does it go nowhere because people like you keep saying don't vote third-party? It's a sad state what's happening in America to the mind of the American left voter. They completely swallowed the corporate talking points handed to them by people whose interest it is in keeping a two-party duopoly.
This has to do with morals and principles.
You're propping up the fucking thing that's ruining everybody. That's exactly what you're doing. John Oliver's doing it. 90% of the comedians I know are doing it. Isn't that weird that all the comedians on TV think exactly the fucking same? Trevor Noah, John Oliver, Bill Maher. Is there a comedian who thinks differently? You know, when everybody in the establishment on every corporate news show tells me one thing, it makes me nervous. And you're all wrong, by the way.
This election has very little to do with politics, policy, or legislation.
Because they certainly weren't about Bernie because he has his good looks and his charm, okay? He was a 74, 5-year-old Jewish bald guy yelling at you with his hands like this, doing everything wrong. Doing everything wrong.
But she's intelligent, and she knows what she's doing.
The guys who know how everything works crashed our economy within 10 years after they repealed Glass-Steagall, and it was predicted, okay? And they did it anyway. And I figured out what was going on before the crash happened, and I didn't even own a house at that time, and I'm a C student.
More importantly, she's responsible, and she's sane.
That's the Clinton Library? That's the water on fire.
Oh, oops.
So this is Little Rock?
That's the Clinton Library? That's the water on fire. That was a gas pipeline from a fracking thing.
Responsible.
So I'm sure Hillary is aware of the dangers of fracking.
I will be voting for Hillary Clinton.
The only thing Hillary Clinton and the corporatists have to offer you is fear.
This is about a megalomaniac who's driven by nothing but ego.
So everybody be afraid of Trump. Meanwhile, they're jailing journalists at the behest of Barack Obama's donors. They got rid of habeas corpus.
Yeah, but it's so funny how you when you say those things, you know that the
They go,
mass,
oh, he's crazy.
Yeah, the mass of people.
Why
like,
would they
it's
pass
crazy.
that law? Why would they pass that law? Look what they did to Chelsea Manning. Look what they want to do to Edward Snowden. But you know who they won't prosecute? They won't prosecute actual war criminals who committed war crimes. Who they want to prosecute is the people who exposed the war crimes and the war criminals.
A man who cares exactly zero about the people of this country.
We have a torture facility right now off the Florida coast. It's called Guantanamo Bay. They just had a guy's rectum just got prolapsed because they jammed a broom handle up it so many times. That's your country.
A man who cares exactly zero about the people of this country.
They're using military, they got like military stuff, and then they just start beating people. Now watch this. Wow.
What?
What the fuck is going on in this country? And now watch these maniacs. This guy, he wants a piece of the action. This guy, he's going to get a little bit. I'm going to get one of those. They're not doing anything. Watch this on the street. Just throwing people. These are citizens. Now, this is a private home. The homeowner wanted the people there, and they're all faceless, and they're all wearing their combat garb. Their combat garb, like they're fucking in combat, instead of what they're really doing, which is beating peaceful protesters. Cowards. And there's 2,000 of them, and there's a couple hundred of the protesters. And what are they protesting? They're protesting police brutality. And how do they respond? With more police brutality.
This has to do with morals and principles.
The police presence up there is mind-boggling. And that's not because of what's happening. That's a message.
That's why they're charging journalists with 45 years.
Yeah.
Edward Snowden tweeted out, I only was charged with 30 years. He goes, so what does that tell you?
Morals and principles.
When the banks crash again, and they're going to, it'll be worse than it was last time because more people are in worse place. Half the country's poor or in poverty.
Right.
People, when I say that, people freak out, Dave. People go, so where are you getting that? I don't know. Did Google break on your computer? We can't have single payer, Dave. We're only the richest. We can't have what Canada has. We couldn't possibly have the health outcomes of Costa Rica. Hillary Clinton at the top of her lungs screamed at Bernie Sanders. It will never happen.
I will be voting for Hillary Clinton.
You cannot vote for Trump. You have to vote for Hillary. As soon as we're done voting for her, we have to put her through hell. And one of the problems is that if she wins every state,
she'll have no reason to listen to us.
no reason.
The way you get a politician to try to cotton to your ideas is to say you're not voting for them.
The third parties are actually where the American people are. And it's the two parties that are not with the American people. It's not about winning. It's about expanding the discourse. And also, your vote, if you're voting for a third party, that is a much more powerful vote because not only are you you're sending a message, but you're helping that party get federal funding. It gets past the 5%, then it's federally funded. That means it will have more money to have a larger platform to speak to the American people in a louder voice.
I have to support because Trump and the Supreme Court. And let me tell you, that Supreme Court argument is the same argument they give you every time a Republican runs. Take Trump's name out of it. Oh, we can't let Jeb Bush win. Why? Supreme Court. Oh, we can't let Ted Cruz win. Why? Supreme Court. We can't let Marco Rubio win. Why? Supreme Court. They'll say that over and over and over. That has nothing to do with Trump. It's time. It's time to create political space. That's exactly what Mark said on the phone. But the establishment is super afraid of that. So that's why they marginalize them. That's why they tell the fable that Ralph Nader cost Al Gore the election, which I've done 2 videos on that. We all know that's not what happened at all.
I'm voting for Hillary because, make no mistake, there is only one person that can defeat him.
I get it. Yes, I'm sure Trump's presidency would be a nightmare for climate change. So is Hillary Clinton's. I don't think people realize how far past we've passed the tipping point. You know, the Copenhagen agreement, people said that was a travesty and they wanted to keep it at 2 degrees Celsius climate increase. And then the Paris one is even worse. They said 3. It's over already. Figure out how you're going to die because climate change is here. And we have no rational response to it. Governments have no rational response.
There is only one person that can defeat him. One person that can keep him away from power, and it is her.
If you were going to concoct a conspiracy to distract people from the most horrible shit in the world, you would create Donald Trump. Malcolm X in 1964 said the exact same thing. The Democrats knew that the only way they could get their people to run to a wolf was you show them a bear. And he said, even people who I know who consider themselves enemy of the system were on their knees waiting for a Johnson presidency. And when he was scaring everybody about nuclear war with Goldwater, he was secretly starting the Vietnam War, where 3 million people would end up being killed. And maybe the Democrats got lucky that he just came along, but they certainly helped it. The WikiLeaks are also revealing that the Clintons knew Trump would help them, and they pushed it. And everybody's talking about Trump. Oh, did you see Michelle's speech about Trump? Hey, did you know we're poisoning kids in Flint with lead?
This is not that. This is about a megalomaniac who's driven by nothing but ego. A man who cares exactly zero about the people of this country.
Hillary Clinton presidency splits the opposition to her horrible neoliberal, corporate-friendly, anti-worker, pro-war, pro-Wall Street policies, pro-fracking policies. She splits it. If Donald Trump was in there, everyone would rally against him. These are the people who can't stand up and scream loud enough. You're supporting her? She's screwing over anything that's liberal, anything that's progressive. This is a fascist. What is fascism? Fascism is corporations and government coming together for the benefit of corporations at the detriment of their own citizens. This is nuts.
There is something much more valuable than subscribers or dollars, and that's backbone. That is not being scared to stand up for what is right, regardless of the costs.
You know how you told him to man up? Why don't you man up and do something tough? Stick your neck out and stand up against war.
Stand up for what is right, regardless of the costs.
But you won't. And you consider yourself on the left?
And if this guy gets elected, and you stood back with your arms folded and didn't speak out against him, it makes you complicit. It makes you partially responsible for handing him the reins of power.
This rationale plays on the fears of disadvantaged people and those who care about them in order to perpetuate current power dynamics. Hey, you better vote for this corporatist who's going to outsource your jobs and screw you over and keep building prisons and less money for... But if the other guy's worse, this rationale is in many ways an expression of the very privilege it critiques. I don't hear many poor people saying that. I don't hear many poor people saying, oh, you're privileged, that's why you're voting for Joe. I never heard, I have yet one poor person to say that to me.
It makes you partially responsible for handing him the reins of power.
People are like, oh my God, what if Trump's president? I'm like, well, if Hillary Clinton was half as scared of it as you are, maybe she would come try to get my vote. But she's not. She's been going after Republican votes. We just did a story about how she's going after Romney donors, bragging about the 50 neocons who endorsed her, Henry Kissinger, John Negra frickin' Ponte, promising them, you'll be happier with me than Donald Trump.
You see, this generation, if we're all banded together, we have the power to ensure that this tax-avoiding, lying, racist, misogynist stays away from power and out of the White House. But it requires all of us coming together.
If everybody who said don't vote third party because it goes nowhere voted third party, we'd probably win the election. You know, more people consider themselves independent than consider themselves Republican or Democrat. So if everybody voted their conscience this election, we could get rid of these two parties. But people won't do it. Why? Because you're brainwashed. Because people don't have a problem regurgitating corporate talking points handed to them by warmongers.
If this guy gets elected, and you stood back with your arms folded and didn't speak out against him, it makes you complicit. It makes you partially responsible for handing him the reins of power.
A people that elect corrupt politicians, imposters, thieves, and traitors are not victims, but accomplices. So those people who say that to you, you tell them to shut the fuck up. Tell them they don't get their head out of their ass. And if you want to support a candidate who gave full-throated support to the Iraq War and brags about being duped by George Bush, I don't need your advice on how to vote. This smug condescension from morons who know less about politics than me, wagging their finger at me that I'm supposed to support a warmonger who brags about being friends with Kissinger and Negroponte, who says she was duped by George Bush. Fuck you.
There is something much more valuable. That is not being scared to stand up for what is right, regardless of the cost. Stand up for what is right, regardless of the cost.
The only thing they have to offer you is fear. You got to vote for them because where else you going to go? You're going to go to Trump? Ha, ha, ha. As soon as you stop being afraid, that's when they get afraid.